pressures athletes face. Dr. LaKesha LeGree, an anesthesiologist and owner of Elev8 MD Wellness, and one of the best athletes of all time, 5-time Olympic medalist and basketball Hall of Famer. Great Teresa Edwards. Good morning, ladies. Thank you for joining me for this important topic this morning. Appreciate you.
Good morning.
Teresa, let me start off with you because, look, we know your credentials. Many people see athletes out here and they see you guys as these physical specimens that can do amazing things, that entertain us a lot. But give us an idea of the mental toll that an athlete goes through when you're under the most pressurized situations and under the harshest of spotlights.
First of all, we're quite obsessive with becoming our greatest and being our best on every occasion. In that mode, you're on all cylinders at all time. That's what we do. That we strive hard to be our greatest. Second of all, I think that failure of success. The fear of failure is really powerful. That stage can grow bigger and bigger, but you got to remember, every one of us are very, very different. How we handle pressure is very different. And even the timing of it. And I think just, current day athletes, their platforms are huge and distractions are even greater than mine was.
And we know there are so many different things that could lead to this type of pressure. Being in the Olympics, you could sign a huge contract. The weight of the world, as Simone Biles said, was on her shoulders, Dr. LaKesha. So we're starting to see more and more teams and more athletes actually employing more mental therapists to help them out. How, in your opinion, is this helping with the athletes along the way?
I think it's extremely important that they have their own therapists on board or even team support, because for the majority of athletes who suffer from depression or who suffer from signs of depression, they're at a threefold risk in comparison to the average person walking around. So we're talking about in a room of 6-9 people, you're thinking every third person has depression. If they're an athlete, that's a threefold increased risk. So we're talking about 67%. And most employees have employee assistance programs, or if they have personal days that you can take off. Well, guess what? The athlete doesn't have an EAP program. The athlete doesn't have personal days. So I think it's very important for programs to build within their infrastructure someone, whether that's a therapist or a general practitioner or a family practitioner, someone that they can talk to. We need to open the door at least slightly so that they know they can start communicating, because holding it in is the wrong thing to do, because you can eventually implode.
And that's true, because I always say that sports is just a microcosm of society, Teresa. So the first step, like Simone did, like Naomi Osaka did, it's just admitting that you have these issues and not pretending to be superhuman, although your fans and society thinks that you're superhuman.
So, imagine this, Mike. It takes a lot of courage, strength to actually make that decision in front of the world. Okay, so I commend them for stepping forward and being honest with themselves. But as I mentioned to someone yesterday, I thought Simone kind of put herself on the bench. She's like, you know what? I'm not going to be the detriment of the team. I thought that was very, very commendable.
Yeah. How do you deal with it? Because she said basically she has the yips. A lot of people look at the time in this and say, why didn't she do this earlier? Well, if you read the backstory, she was going through a lot of pressure coming over there. She didn't have the support system. It was happening in practice, and she didn't want to put her team in a bad position, Dr. LaKesha. So when you get the yips, and we've seen athletes get this before, how do you get past something like that when all of a sudden you've been great for so long, and then all of a sudden you can't do the simplest of things? We've seen like baseball players not being able to throw the ball to first base because they got the yips. It's inside their head.
I think we have to remember, as Hall of Famer Teresa just said, that they are people first. They're humans first. So they have this over-exaggerated, intense, pressurized system with respect to professional athletes or Olympic athletes. And on top of that, they have their own issues that they may or may not be dealing with, whether that's familial issues, whether that's personal issues, or we fail to remember that Simone Biles is the only competing 2012 Olympian that's stemming from that sexual abuse with Team Dr. Nassar from back in 2012. So we have no idea what's going through this young lady's mind. And for gymnastics, those tricks and that sport is so competitive but also dangerous, in that if your mind is not
Yes.
spot on, you can risk injury, which may actually be career ending injury. So I commend her for taking a step up, for recognizing that her mind wasn't in the game, so that she doesn't, like she said, cost her team another medal, or cost her team more deductions and points, which could possibly also cost her perhaps a career ending injury. She often said that during that vault that she did, that we knew something was wrong. She didn't know where she was
Hmm.
in the air. That is dangerous.
Right.
But to recognize the problem and actually do something about it, I commend her for that.
Yeah, great point by both of you, and it's a great point to bring up Dr. Nassar. Go ahead, Teresa.
It, there's also, I think, there's the identity of who we really are, who we are perceived by the media, who we were 5 years
Mm.
ago, and who we become, and who she is today. Her maturity phases, things of that nature, aren't always taken into account as well. And like the doctor said, there's things behind the scenes that we don't always want to share with the world. And mainly, our true identity is something that you may not embrace always. That's a, attributed to my success as a basketball player or as a gymnast.
But Teresa, and that's a great point, because you, a lot of times, and we notice in the Black community, a lot of times, even when I was going through my mental health situations, I didn't want to admit that I had these issues. We always put on this facade, this mask, pretending that everything is all right, because we've been taught that in our community, and that's the same thing for a lot of athletes. But now, because we're starting to see the Naomi Osaka's come out, you heard Simone Biles give her credit because she had the courage to come out, and you heard even like white athletes like Kevin Love, Serena Williams talked about the mental issues that she's had to go through after her pregnancy. The fact that we're seeing more and more athletes come out, do you think, Dr. LaKesha, that we're going to see more and more athletes stepping up and admitting that they have these mental issues that they need to address?
I hope so, because it'll take a village to create any type of infrastructure change. For example, I don't think that it's fair that Naomi Osaka was fined for taking a media break. You miss media day as a National Basketball Association player, you miss media day as an NFL player, you miss media day as any sort of professional athlete, and you're monetarily fined. Why is that? Athletes should have time and should have a infrastructure built in where they feel the support within their competitive athletic family, as opposed to being scrutinized by the media. For example, people like Megyn Kelly, who came out and scrutinized
Mm.
Simone Biles for speaking up and for stepping back when she recognized she needed time for her mental health. That type of scrutiny will just prevent athletes from coming out and telling their stories. And that will just further exacerbate the problem of us having this stigma surrounding mental health. So we have people like Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka and the Michael Phelps and the Raven Saunders to come out and tell
Hmm.
their stories. Then I hope that'll create a domino effect, because athletes need to know it's okay to not be okay all the time. I'll be the first to say, hi, my name's Dr. LeGree. I'm an anesthesiologist and I'm a survivor of depression myself. It's okay.
Yes. Yes, and that shows a strength, a sign of strength right there. And you got to understand that people like Megyn Kelly are people that actually need to get the help they need as well. Because if you come out and you say something disparaging about somebody with mental health, yeah, they have issues. I'm just telling it like it is. You ain't got to say it. I'm gonna say
Yeah,
it for
you
you.
point
Teresa,
one
I'm gonna give you the
finger at
last.
somebody else, it's not going back at you.
Exactly, because they're not happy with themselves. They always say hurt people, hurt people. They make them kill. Anyway, I don't want to bring a name up. Teresa, I'm gonna give you the last word. We got about 30 seconds. Give some advice to an athlete out there that's thinking about it, that know they're going through issues, that they got a lot of pressure. The team or individual performances, relying on their own individual performances, but they need to get that help. What do you say to them?
Be not afraid. Be true to yourself. Be absolute true to yourself. Speak out. Voice it. Find a safe place. The U.S. Olympic Committee have people in place for you to go to a safe place and voice these things. And most people would say fight through the process. I'll say feel through the process. Do what feels good
Mm-hmm.
and right for you. We have to embrace these athletes. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of where they've actually arrived to Tokyo. That was a journey in itself. You've already proven yourself to be amongst the best that represents our country.
Amen. And if you know anything about Simone Biles' story, you will know that she deserves a gold medal just for being there this year as well. Ladies, this has been an outstanding conversation. I appreciate your time. I hope we can continue to make progress when it comes to mental health in this country and around the world. Thank you, Dr. LeGree and Teresa Edwards, for joining me here today on Start Your Day. You're welcome back anytime.